Realize tough times are ahead with consumers paying over 15 rand a litre for petrol. This is the third hike this year. It will have a knock-on effect on transport costs and other essentials. To tell us how to get through this difficult period, we hope, we are joined by financial consultant Samke Mhlongo. Samke, thank you so much for coming through. So it seems this economy is actually yo-yoing with us, if you can still use that phrase in this day and age. And that, I mean, in the last quarter, the third quarter of 2017, the last quarter of 2017, rather, we saw an increase and we were all excited. And just the very next quarter, we are down some 2.2%, the highest plunge, the deepest plunge since 2009. What is your understanding of what happened there? Why did we change trajectory?
So ordinarily you would think that, it's just because it's seasonal. Historically, you know that the first quarter of any year will be down on the fourth quarter because the fourth quarter will be inflated by your December holiday spend, etc. But this figure of minus 2.2% has already been seasonally adjusted and annualized. So it's comparing apples with apples, which does then say to us that there's something serious going on here. Now, the agricultural sector declined by about just over 24%, and is what's responsible for driving down or dragging down our economic growth. And the mining sector was down just over 9%. And if you look at the pronouncements around these two industries, you had the land expropriation bill without compensation in February, and then you had the revision of the mining charter last year. So sentiment is that, players in these industries are holding back any sort of investments or capital spend or growth in these industries because there's a lot of uncertainty around the future of these industries and whether indeed they will benefit and reap the rewards of any investments they make.
And Samke, you can make those contentions you make very confidently because you've recently observed an interaction between South African players with some of the players from the EU. What were some of the main themes that were coming forward in as far as investor sentiment is concerned there?
Absolutely. So earlier today, I was involved in a business discussion with EU and UK stakeholders, together with one of our local government agencies. And big rhetoric that was coming from there is around uncertainty. The EU was saying that we are responsible for 75% of foreign direct investment into South Africa. But we have such quick changes to legislation and policy, which makes it difficult for our players and businesses that are from the EU to then come and make long-term plans and investments in the country. So I think uncertainty is a big one, and the pace at which policy changes, and also the fact that these changes have to do with something significant like ownership. So it's not just around sort of maybe trade legislation or just having to change a process here or there, but it's around fundamentals like ownership. So they've really sort of implored government and also decision makers to be cognizant of that fact and involve the different stakeholders before making such decisions and pronouncements.
But surely the investors should be taking a level of comfort from some of the rhetoric we've been hearing that, things are going to start changing around here and we're going to have a bit more certainty in as far as the investor environment is concerned, and also the ease of doing business is going to improve. Or are they?
Investors are tired of the good story we tell. So, of course, the rand did strengthen when we had President Ramaphosa come in and take over from the ANC, and we had a level of Ramaphoria. We've seen our interest rates drop. But, the EU business owners and investors were saying we are still operating under policies and legislation that were put in place during the Zuma presidency. So until such time as we see a change in the actual practices and the way we actually do business, then we're not willing to put in additional funding into the country or additional investment. So as much as we are saying we will do things, as much as we've always had very fantastic plans over the history of democratic South Africa, foreign investors are now saying we actually want to see those plans being actioned, which is where we've tended to fail over the years. And
there's a laundry list of the things that are outstanding, not least of which the whole issue around the mining sector charter. So let's try and narrow it down to the individual before I let you go then, Samke. Is there anything at all that we can do to cope? I mean, VAT is up for the first time in about 24, 25 years. We saw that the fuel levies that came into effect at the beginning of April, and now we're hit with another 82 cents a litre increase in petrol, which has, a knock-on effect throughout the economy. Is there anything we can do, or do we just accept that this is the situation we're in?
I think I'm going to have to be the bearer of bad news and say that as consumers, there's nothing much you can do except to tighten belts, because you'll see a very dramatic increase in the overall cost of living. And there are already concerns that you will have that inflationary increase and tick up because of the VAT increase, which, although it was a percentage increase from 14 to 15%, we know that the actual cost of the goods that is VATable would have gone up by about 7%. So now you're having the additional burden of a fuel price increase on this, and it will definitely hit the poor the most, who tend to spend over 50% of their earnings on accommodation and transportation. This also doesn't bode well for potential social unrest, which could then affect our credit ratings outlook. Because how is government going to help the poor when they're on a fiscal consolidation path?
I see that you've even, you're not even going to try and talk to us about carpooling or, to take a bike to work. We are beyond that now, aren't we?
I think in a geography like South Africa, where you still have spatial concerns, where economic hubs are very far from residential hubs. Really, me saying carpool or bike is not very feasible. And over the years, when I've actually looked at the effect or impact of such solutions, they don't tend to be very feasible. So I think we really need to not be idealistic about the solutions that we need in the country, but rather be very pragmatic and practical to say immediately we need to tighten belts. Lifestyle will have to change because we already have an over-indebtedness crisis, and I guess we just need to look and see what government will do, and also they will definitely need the help of the private sector in creating jobs and boosting the economy. So we'll need to lobby our government to create a business and investor-friendly environment, because right now that may just be the only solution we have to recovering our economy.
Samke, you're the finance doctor, and when that diagnosis comes from you, I have no reason to doubt it. It really is bad. Thank you so much for coming through and talking to us. That is